Hi guys, Brett Manning here, trustee of the new Aussie Constitution Trust. The new Aussie Constitution is a proposed draft replacement for the current Australian Constitution. When I talk about changing the current Australian Constitution, one of the arguments that gets put to me is, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And certainly, for all of my adult life, we've had a very stable government system under the monarchy that currently exists. But I would argue that it's not a case of it not being broken. It is a case of the fact that Queen Elizabeth was a very effective leader and one that could be trusted to allow Australians to get on with the business of managing their own country. But I like to use the analogy that we're driving around in this country with the engine check light on. So if there's something wrong with the engine in your car and the engine check light comes on, but the car's still running, so you can choose to pay no attention to that light, but you know that sooner or later something's going to break. So it is with the Australian Constitution. Our Constitution gives the penultimate right for the management of this country to a foreign individual that hasn't been chosen in any way, shape or form by the Australian people. So the Governor-General signs off on all legislation passed by our Parliament, and it only becomes law once the Governor-General has signed it off. The Governor-General is signing on behalf of the King. If the King doesn't want a piece of legislation to pass, that is within the King's prerogative. So ultimately and legally, at the end of the day, the King is running Australia. And if there are disagreements in the future between the democratically elected government and the monarch, the law would settle that in the favour of the monarch. So it's not a case of running off to the High Court because the monarch hasn't agreed with something that the democratically elected government wants done or not done. The High Court is going to defer to the King because that is the legal arrangement. If the King wants to make a proclamation that has nothing to do with anything that's gone through Parliament, again, it's within the King's prerogative to do so. And the government of the day in Australia, democratically elected or not, will have to accept that proclamation. So we're running the country, we're driving around with the engine check light on. And sooner or later, whether it be this monarch or a monarch in the future, there is going to be a disagreement between the government of the day and the monarch. And under those circumstances, the monarch wins. Now, as an Australian citizen, I believe that we are an independent nation and that we control our own destiny through a democracy. But that's not actually the situation. And it's not just a case of having a one-line constitutional change, do we wish to become a republic? Australians need to see a full draft of any proposed changes to the Australian Constitution so that they can decide in an informed way how we should proceed. The new Aussie Constitution seeks to do that, and it is very much a live document for discussion. And if we choose to replace the Australian Constitution rather than to amend a document that was written back in 1900, and replace it with a contemporary document that actually reflects how our government actually operates. I think it's time that we started to talk about a replacement Australian Constitution. Not some minor amendments, not some one-line approvals from the people. The people need to see a draft, full draft, proposed replacement for the Constitution. We need to discuss and amend that draft until we are largely satisfied with it, and then we need to put it to the people. But the people need to see what it is they're voting for or against. So please take a moment to visit the website for the new Aussie Constitution Trust and have a look at the proposed draft new Aussie Constitution. Have a look at the issues that are discussed in that. Have a look at systems and how things are proposed to work. And decide if you think that this is a good approach, if you think there are things in there that should be removed, if you think there are things that should be included that are not addressed in the current draft. We'd love to hear from you so that we can continue to improve the document as a potential replacement for the current Australian Constitution. Thanks for your time.